friends, this is Ashley Latecki Ellenboss with Sky House Herb School and Apothecary, and today we'll be looking at oats and oat straw as nervous system medicine. And what we'll be talking about specifically are the medicinal actions of both oats and oat straw, and we'll talk about their differences. We'll also talk about the energetic qualities between them and how these energetic qualities can teach us a lot about their medicines. And we'll also take a look at the doctrine of signatures, which is a really helpful way of looking at the way a plant grows to better understand some of its more sort of secret hints for what kind of work it can do. And the last thing we'll talk about is how to use it. What is the best way to use these as medicines? So let's begin. I wanted to first start off by talking about this plant because it is in the Poaceae family. And so a lot of times, we think about medicinal herbs as being, in the mint or maybe the parsley family, but oat straw is in the Poaceae or the grass family. So it's a common grass. A lot of us know oats from, Quaker oats or breakfast as a cereal, but it actually, as a medicine, has quite substantial research done on it as a food and what it does medicinally inside of the body. And then the oat straw, which is not the grain itself, but the actual grass part, is another piece that is used by herbalists. And then there really is I guess you could call it a third part, which is the milky oat tops. And so that is something that really, in order to get that particular medicine, you do have to get a fresh plant tincture of the milky oat. So I'll talk a little bit about that too. So when we look at the plant, we're going to see different parts. We're going to see the grass part, which is sort of like the stem. We'll see that seed, and the seed is, at first it becomes milky. It's called the milky stage, where it gets kind of, if you were to squeeze it, a white exudate would sort of come out of it. And then once it passes that stage and starts to dry is when it moves to the seed stage or the grain stage. And that's what most of us are familiar with in terms of a breakfast cereal, is after it has passed through the milky phase and has been dried and sliced and processed. So those are all three different parts, and medicinally, they're different parts of the plant. So I want to start by talking about the oat straw, because this is probably the part that I use most in my clinical practice. So oat straw, when you buy it commercially, or if you buy it from any herb grower, it's going to be basically this very shiny, light green kind of. Yeah, it's like a very lightweight, little tiny green pieces, and they're quite dense. So in my herbal apprenticeship program, I have my students start off doing a plant diet. Their first plant diet is nettles, and nettle leaves are really, really fluffy. So when you buy a pound of nettles, it's like this much. But when you buy a pound of oat straw, it's about half that amount because it's dense. It's a grass and it's thin. It's not very round and fluffy. So it is a little bit heavier. And so when we're weighing it out or measuring it out, there's going to be a different amount that you're going to get than you would get from a normal fluffy green part of a plant. So with the oat straw, again, what you want to find is it should be very shiny. And that's showing you that it still has a lot of minerals and it has silica in it. So look for that sheen when you're looking at your oat straw that you buy. If it's really, really dull and kind of lifeless and more on the kind of beige or brownish side, then it's probably too old. It really should be this very light spring green color. I'm looking around to see if there's anything light green, maybe kind of like this color. So you can see the difference. So like your nettles, when you buy nettles, should be this dark green. And then your oat straw, when you buy it, should be more of this sort of light green color. Now, oat straw is a wonderful regenerative nervine. And so it's really food for the nerves. And I remember Susan Weed, who taught at our herb school many, many years ago, she said it's for women who are old and dried out and need to become juicy again. She's like, this herb will make you juicy. And I found that to be true in a lot of clients over the years. It's moistening, it's cooling. So it's actually the opposite of nettles, which is why I have my students take them sort of in the first part of our course, because nettles is hot and dry. And if you want to learn more about nettles, I have a whole talk on it here on YouTube called Nettles as Mother Medicine. And I compare and contrast them because they're kind of like siblings, because nettles is it's a very building nutritive tonic like oat straw. It's very, very high in minerals. But the difference is that nettles is very hot and dry, whereas oat straw is very cool and moistening. Also, nettles is going to be more activating. It's really high in chlorophyll. It tends to be a little bit more stimulating in its energetics. It's a Mars ruled plant, whereas oat straw is going to be a little bit more relaxing and more of like a nervine than it is going to be something that's going to give you a lot of energy. And so it's really good for people that are run down and really depleted. And you can think of it as a convalescent herb. And this is a term that's unfortunately fallen out of use here in the United States, but in Europe, it's still very common. So convalescence is the period of getting your health back after you've been sick for a while. And I would say maybe even beyond just being sick, but being stressed for a long time. So if you've maybe moved or changed jobs or had a child, or your child's left the nest, had any sort of stressful experience that's taken an extended period of time, you may want to consider using oat straw, because it is going to be very gently nourishing and building and restoring to frayed and frazzled nerves. And I think about oat straw too. Sometimes it works really well in combination with nettles, because it can balance out some of the hot and dry qualities. So if you find that you like nettles, but it's a little bit too drying for you, if you were to combine it with oat straw, you might find that it's actually very, very balancing. And then you get that harmonizing effect between the two plants. Oat straw as a medicine as well, I really think it's good for those people that tend to run hot and dry. So if you're kind of that pitta or fire type person, you tend to burn the candle at both ends. Maybe you tend to forget to drink water, or you forget to sleep or rest or eat, because you're kind of like on the go all the time. Then oat straw can be a really nice medicine to help you slow down, take the foot off the gas pedal, and then literally help to feed and nourish your nervous system. And I almost have this like vision in my head with oat straw. This is part of the doctrine of signatures that I think of with this plant, is that it's these sort of like tall grass. They're these like tall, light green, grassy blades that come up. And, I think about kind of like the way that our nervous system runs on these, basically it's like the same way the internet runs, right? Like on these like strands of silica, which is how our internet runs. Our nervous system is very similar through these different chains of neurotransmitters and these neurons covered with myelin sheath. And so this sort of like milky and kind of light green and very long extended grasses almost look like they could be conductors of electricity or energy. And so they kind of soothe that. I think about oat straw as sort of wrapping itself around taxed and frayed nerves and regenerating them and giving them like extra myelin sheath or extra, you could think of it as like on the outside of electrical wires, there's often this sort of plastic thing that covers it, that keeps the energy in the wire and keeps it from sparking out or causing fires in other places. That the oats as a medicine sort of creates that comforting shield and protects the nerves in that way, giving them extra support and focus so that the energy can go exactly where it's needed. While we're talking about doctrine of signatures, there's another really interesting feature of this plant, which is that the head of this plant. So you have these tall, grass-like stems that come up, and then the oat heads themselves actually kind of fall and yeah, they kind of like dip down like a head. So I'm going to just pull up a picture here and share it with you so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. And if you're listening to this and you are not, you're listening to this on a podcast, then you'll just have to listen to my description and hopefully it will still make sense. I'm just going to pull up a photo here of oat straw. And so again, you've got this grassy stem and it grows quite tall. It has these leaves, which you can kind of see in the background here, which are, very shiny and shimmery. Even these heads, do you see? They're kind of like oblong, oval-shaped heads. These are the seed pods. And I want you to notice the direction that they're facing. Notice how all of these seed heads or seed pods are facing downward. And so in the doctrine of signatures, this is an indication of something that is going to relax the nervous system. It's going to have this relaxing, releasing, soothing, calming type of energy in the body. And this is very different from nettles, which is very upright, very pointy, very jagged. Everything is going up, 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 right? Except for the seeds, which go down. But most of the plant is very, very upright and activating. It looks very activating. Whereas oat straw, everything about this plant just looks like it's calming, right? It's a very downward, has a lot of downward activity in it. So yeah, I just wanted to show you that because sometimes seeing the plant can also be very helpful. So it has this great calming activity, and it also can be used for depression. So if you are really exhausted, let's say you lost someone you love, or you moved and it was a very traumatic process for you, and you're feeling sort of depressed. Now, the nice thing about oat straw is that even though it has this relaxing, downward moving energy, it has actually been used for depression. So it's going to be a very, very good one for nourishing and helping you to kind of find a lightness of spirit again. And that lightness of spirit comes from nourishment. It doesn't come from sedation. So you can think about that, when you're thinking about maybe is this plant a good match for me? If you're tending towards overexcitement, which leads to depletion, or stress that has led to depression, then this plant might be a really, really nice one for you. So yeah, those are the energetic and the medicinal qualities of oat straw. Now let's talk about the milky oats, which again are those grains that reach that milky stage. And they only last in that milky stage for a few days. So for people who make milky oat tops tincture, they're out there in the field watching it until it reaches that milky stage where you can squish it in your fingers and it has that milky exudate that comes out of it, right? And then they're tincturing it fresh right there. Now, I've bought milky oat tops dried before, and they're like okay, right? But they're definitely not as good as the tincture. Now, why would you use milky oat tops or versus using oat straw? Well, here's the main distinction is that milky oats is actually a little bit more fortifying and energizing. So for someone who's had a lot of, let's say, stress and depletion, and they are really ready to actually build their energy back up, and they're looking to, gain a little bit more energy, it's also really good for libido. It's considered to be a plant that stimulates the production of ojas in Ayurveda, which is the reproductive juices of the body. So for people that are also looking for, increased increasing their reproductive juiciness or libido, then Milky Oat tops would be a really good medicine. And you can take them together. You know, if you're like, gosh, I think I really need both. My nervous system really needs some rejuvenation and my libido needs some rejuvenation, then why not do both? Why not take the Milky Oats as a tincture and take the oat straw as a tea? And I'll talk about doses at the end. And then the third part, or well, I guess I'll say one more thing about the Milky Oats, is it's considered to be the most yin part of the plant. And so it's the most yin rejuvenative. And so again, if we think about, you know, if you're into astrology, you can think about it as being the most lunar. It's really one of the most lunar medicines we have. So if you're really looking to fortify the lunar energies in a person, if their lunar placements are maybe in a weakened state and they have a lot of moon related issues, then you may want to think about, okay, the Milky Oat tops would be a specific medicine here. Okay, so then the last piece that I'll talk about are oats themselves. So these are the dried oats that you can buy commercially. I would recommend, as with all herbs and foods, that you try to go organic. I will say one thing about people who have gluten sensitivities. So if you're celiac and you have a gluten allergy, then you do, unfortunately, you'll probably need to avoid oats altogether. Not because oats themselves have gluten, but there's often a lot of cross contamination. So I've had students over the years who are both gluten sensitive and have celiac, and they've had reactions to oat straw. They've had reactions to Milky Oat tops. And again, that's mostly because of cross contamination and not because of that they contain gluten themselves. Now for oats, a lot of people can, you know, they do sell gluten-free oats where they actually test for gluten. And maybe there are companies out there that have gluten-free oat straw that you can buy. I'm not aware of that, but if you know about them, please share that in the chat box. I'd love to hear. But you know, I would say that again, if you're sensitive, you might be able to get away with the Milky Oat tops with no problems. But most people that are even a little bit gluten sensitive sometimes have reactions with oat straw. So unfortunately, that might not be a medicine that's available to you. And there are other nervines that might be really good matches. So you can research those. Now, with the oats themselves, again, if you buy them, you can buy them specifically gluten-free. And this is a really great medicine that has a number of different uses. So oats can be used as a topical soothing agent for irritated skin, dry skin. I remember as a child when I had chicken pox taking a bath in oatmeal. So, you know, for any sort of skin irritation, itchy rashes, you know, oats topically are a really, really wonderful option. And what I would recommend doing is taking oats, soaking them overnight. And I would do maybe like 2 full cups of dried oats, soak them in enough water where like the water is maybe double the amount of the oats, maybe 4 cups of water, soak it overnight, stick it in a blender, and then put it in a big cheesecloth or muslin cloth bag, and then squeeze all of that out into the bath. And it's going to be this white, milky, really, really soothing and cooling, almost gel-like substance that will come out that you can use topically to soothe the skin. And this is great for animals. It's great for babies. You know, it's safe for all skin. You know, unless you have a severe gluten allergy, then you might want to avoid that if it's not gluten-free, right? Other uses for oats, there's been a ton of research looking at its what would it be? It works on lipidemia. So it has this very specific name. It's like anti-hyperlipidemic. But basically it's going to be, where is it? Yeah, it is. Well, I had it somewhere. I'm sure I'll find it again. But you can just use your imagination to think about what that word would be. So I'll just call it lipid lowering to, to save us time for me searching for it. So it's basically lipid lowering. So when you eat oats, it has this effect of helping bind excess fats in the body and moving them out because it's very high in fiber. It has also been shown to be very helpful for balancing blood sugar levels. So if you're someone who has blood pressure or blood sugar levels, sorry, that go up and down, maybe you're hypoglycemic or maybe you are pre-diabetic, you might find that eating oats as a food can be very supportive in balancing and stabilizing blood sugar levels. It's also anti-carcinogenic. We found there's been studies that have shown that. Anti-atherogenic effects, which basically means that eating oats can also help prevent against arteriosclerosis, which is hardening of the arteries, which is something that is associated with cardiovascular disease. So it's, if you remember, once all this research started coming out, I think it was in the 80s, was when Quaker Oats had that big heart on it. It has, the old man Quaker oat man. And then it had the big heart. And so, this is a heart healthy food. And it's true, it really is. So it is a good food to add into your diet if you're looking for ways to support heart health, to support your cholesterol levels, and to support blood sugar levels as well. I also wanted to say that I know a lot of people are into different types of plant-based milks, and oat milk is my favorite, and it's so easy to make. So I'm going to tell you real quickly how to make oat milk. It's the same basic recipe as I told you to make an oat bath. So what I would do is take about 2 cups of your oat, of dried oats, and then about, 4 to maybe even 6 cups of water. You can kind of play around with how thick and strong you want it, and let that steep overnight. And then add about a teaspoon of honey and a little sprinkle of cinnamon, and then throw all of that in a large blender. Blend it up really, really well until it looks like milk. Then pour it through a cheesecloth or muslin bag. And usually what I'll do is I'll pour it into a few different, I'll do like a 1/2 gallon mason jar, which is, kind of like a 1/2 gallon milk jug that you might buy from the store. And so I'll just squeeze it, and you really have to squeeze it out. And it smells good. Again, it's so easy. And then it'll stay in the fridge for, 4 to 5 days. So, you can make as much as you want and then store it in your refrigerator. And then that can be a milk source, and you're getting all of those good health benefits from drinking the milk. You're not getting as much fiber as you would be as if you were actually eating the oats, but you are getting a lot of the health benefits, and you're getting that milky, cooling, soothing medicine too, which will also work on the nervous system. So when I have clients who are, again, like dried out, burned out, exhausted, maybe feeble even, not only will I recommend drink some oat straw, I'll also say drink oat milk, and and try taking Milky Oat drops. Okay, so that could be a full protocol. So now let's talk about how do we make Milky Oats? No, how do we make it's a tongue twister? How do we make milk? How do we make oat straw as a tea? And then how do we use Milky Oats as a tincture? So oat straw as a tea, you would make it the same way you would make an overnight infusion of any other herb like nettles. So I recommend starting with about a 1/2 cup of oat straw. Place it in a quart-sized jar. So that's like a liter-sized jar. Boil water, about 4 cups. Pour it into the jar with the oat straw, cap it, and let it sit overnight. So that's going to be, a minimum of, I would say 8 to 10 hours, a minimum of 6 hours, right? So if you wake up really early in the morning, you could make it in the morning and then drink it by the afternoon. But making it overnight is really nice because it is so full of minerals that those will come out much more fully the longer it steeps. So let's say after 8 hours, you wake up, you strain it, and then you just drink that full quart throughout the day. And I would say, try to drink it before 3 to 4 p.m. So maybe you drink half in the morning, half in the afternoon. And the reason for that is you just don't want to be going to the bathroom all night. Well, this plant is not diuretic. If you drink that much fluid, you're going to go to the bathroom. So that's my recommended way of taking oat straw. And then milky oat tops, again, is best taken as a tincture. Unless you're harvesting it yourself and making the medicine yourself, you're probably going to be buying it commercially. I really like milky oat tops made by herbalists and alchemists, and that's David Winston's herbal company. I think Galen's Way also has really good milky oat tops. And you know what? You can buy them fresh. So my friend Pam at Green Comfort Herb Farm, is that? No, Gentle Harmony. Gentle Harmony Herb Farm in North Carolina. If you email her in the springtime, you can get on her list and she will overnight ship you milky oats so that you can make a batch of tincture yourself. So that's pretty neat. So you can look her up as well. But if you're buying it commercially, you're buying it in a tincture form, the dosage would be, I would say, 2 to 4 droppers full, 2 to 3 times a day. So it's a pretty high dose herb. It's not like, it doesn't have a ton of volatile oils or a ton of alkaloids that you need to be cautious of. It's really more nutritive. So think about, half a teaspoon 3 times a day, or a full teaspoon twice a day, something like that would be sufficient. So I hope that was interesting and maybe inspiring, and let me know your thoughts. Let me know if you've ever taken oat straw before, or milky oat tops, or if you've had success using oats as a food for helping with your own cholesterol or your own health issues. And please stay in touch. Let me know what you think. If you do decide to diet the plant, I recommend doing it for 2 weeks. So drink that overnight infusion of oat straw for 2 weeks, and then let me know what you think. Let me know how you feel. Let me know if you feel juicier, if everything feels a little bit more relaxed and calm, and that you start to feel, let me know if you feel that rejuvenation that's so common with this plant. So thanks all for watching. Have a good day.